Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Desk. And today we're going to be talking about hiring locals in Colombia and really understanding the labor laws and cultural nuances. Hey there.
Hi, what's up?
Oh, wearing our main shirts.
Medellin shirts. I ordered these a while ago.
So I wonder if it's acceptable to say main because it's kind of like Southerners, how they just throw 5 words together and make it a
Yeah.
word. I wonder if that's kind of like the slangy, lazy, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm
I think
curious.
the locals there pronounce it Medellin.
Yeah.
So, but some people say Medellin.
Yeah. I probably will still be saying that because that's how I was taught
Yeah.
originally, how it was pronounced. Um, so the Medellin
Medellin.
is new to me.
Medellin.
So I have to unlearn
Medellin.
in order to
Medellin.
relearn, or I just
Yeah.
go with what I know. So you're not wearing one of your courageous voice shirts today. Today you're wearing Medellin.
Medellin.
But that's because you got us matching shirts.
I did.
Right. But
How sappy is that?
I would not go to Disney and wear matching shirts, but I will wear matching Colombian shirts. I'm cool with
Right on.
But speaking of a courageous voice, which is normally who you're repping,
Yeah.
you're actually going to be representing them this Friday
Mm-hmm.
because you not only were nominated, but you also won an award.
Yes.
The award is called, you remember?
The La Fontaine Community Hero Award.
So La Fontaine is a local dealership here. When I say local, they're like the number 1, 2, or 3. Like they're the largest, one of the largest in Michigan. They put their money where their mouth is. They are very much community-driven organization.
Best customer service you will ever receive.
Yeah.
When you're trying to purchase a car. I've never experienced
Just
anything
amazing
like it.
people, well-rounded. And our good friend Audrey over there, she represents them well.
Yes.
And is definitely a representation of what they embody
Amazing.
every time you go there. But you are winning this award for outstanding community hero. No,
Community
yes?
Hero
Community
Award.
hero.
Yes,
Which
you're
means
right.
you're the hero of the
I'm
community.
the hero. ACV is a courageous voice is the
Which
hero.
is huge. So big applause for
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
But what that means is there'll be press around it, but the most important thing is as you come up to this fundraiser in April,
Yeah.
right, you're going to be having pictures taken, video done, press release going out. We're going to this big gala event, black and white gala event.
Friday.
And all of that means the courageous voice is going to have exposure that it otherwise
Wouldn't have. Sure.
Right. So what does that mean to you?
Oh, it means a lot because I've worked my ass off for years. I have a great board that's put in some time and effort as well, a lot of volunteers. So, as we continue to teach children in schools and other youth serving organizations how to stay safe both off and online, it's really important here in the States. We have a really huge issue around this. Michigan ranks around number 10 in human trafficking, and children go for quite a bit of money. It's not just happening in third world countries. So we want to be able to show up and represent for children to have a voice, to know who they can go to, things like that. So this is really, really important. It's, goes deep within my soul of, my own trauma and knowing that I have a voice now too. So it's pretty important.
Where my brain always goes is if you were to be able to educate 50% of the population on what right looks like,
Yeah.
we would probably be able, 51%, you'd probably be able to eliminate that as a behavior.
Yes.
Because the majority of the people are going to say, this is right. They will begin calling people out who are not doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a wish.
It's a wish. But that's where my brain goes on the logical side of what do we do? And what that goes down to is what you're actually doing, which is educating the youth. If you can instill these values and understandings of,
empowering children to know how to have a voice, know what the signs are, know who to talk to, when to make a move, like get in, get out of there if you're ever uncomfortable. And this is, like I said, both off and online.
I was listening to you, one of your things, you're prepping for an event and you're watching a video and it was talking about safe adults.
Yes.
And scenarios of what a teacher's saying, but what if I'm out sick? Who's your safe adult? just kids being aware of what that means and then what to do.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of what we used to do, which was hide in the bathroom for a tornado. That never happened, right? But we knew,
Yeah.
right? Stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll
Ingrained in us. Why can't you have those same practices about
in schools.
child sex
Yeah.
abuse and what to do in the
Prevention
future?
education is
Right?
really key. But yeah, so we're going to be headed to the black and white ball through the one of our local chambers, the Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce. So we're super pumped about that. I also wanted you and I met with Andrew Messina
Yep.
and AK Joel.
And they are exactly as they are. Like they are exactly who they are, which was refreshing. There was no like
Yeah,
fakeness of like this is what we do on camera presenting.
they're
Like
super transparent.
transparent, authentic, genuine, and honestly emulating what it is we believe in, which is for the greater good.
Yeah,
They're there
so
for the people that
they
need it.
are,
Yeah.
and they want to make sure that the people that are moving to Medellin are people that want to give back to the community, not just going down there to be takers, which you and I've talked about before.
Right. Part of their process is vetting the people.
They do vet.
Right.
So there's a whole questionnaire that we had to fill out, and it was such a great conversation. So we started with their essentials masterclass first, and then we'll be going ahead and purchasing the second tier around for their next masterclass, and then eventually there is the elite package that you can buy, which I think is like $5,000, but they literally do everything for you. Um, Renting your apartment for you, and granted you go find the apartment, right? Like you go online and
But they
you do
navigate
that,
the
but they
stuff.
navigate
Right.
everything. They can speak the language, so forth and so on. So it was so cool after watching these guys for 6 months that we were able to meet them and connect and say, okay, how can we help you? How can you help us? And kind of go from there. So we're super excited.
Explain our situation, which was relatively unique to them, and them saying, "Oh yeah, no, that works," right? Because our situation is we have a citizen, we have
Yes.
you non-citizen,
You.
we have a trip planned for eight
Yes.
days. We have an expectation that if everything goes really well there, which we expect it to, that as soon as November, right? And so we explained our unique situation. They took in the info and they said,
Yeah,
doable. Here's our suggestion.
totally.
Here's the roadmap of what we think is going to work best for you.
So
And now we have a guide.
in Sabaneta. So we'll be staying in Sabaneta, checking out Sabaneta, but we're also going to go into Envigado and we're going to check that out as well because that is supposed to be a spectacular place to live. But then there's Medellin, right? There's different parts in Medellin where it could be potential for us as well. So that's kind of what's been going on. We get to get all dressed up on Friday. Sadie, quick update, she's doing great. She has her second and third last set of injections. They're within 24 hours
Next month.
apart in February, just about 5 days before we leave to come to Colombia. So I'm a little stressed out about that. It was a very painful process for her this last time.
She did
So
great. The hardest part is once we got her back, she was unable to get comfortable. And so she was constantly moving around, but she also just wanted to relax and lay
she
down
just wanted,
and be
yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
So
So
that was tough, but that went away after about 24 hours. So, she obviously slept through the night, probably a little uncomfortable, but she was, back to herself within
really,
48
I
hours.
felt like it was more like a week, but maybe that's just me
That's
being the
just you.
mama,
Yeah, yeah.
noticing the little
Also, yeah,
parts.
with work, so with our jobs, we're grinding. We've said it before, and those who haven't seen our previous videos we do advanced SEO work.
Yes.
So we, how people search for something online on Google, we help them become that, top listing,
Yeah.
that top result. So
What if you have a website, Chad? Just because you have a website doesn't mean you're going to be found by people unless they actually have your website information.
that's literally it. You can have a beautiful website that is just killer and ready to convert, but if Google can't find you,
Why have it?
humans
You're
can't find
just
you.
paying money for whatever, for what?
Right. So there's some, and chances are, if you have a website, you also have competition, and if they're doing even just 1%
Right.
more SEO than you are, um, and there's a list of hundreds of factors, they're going to show up. You're not going to show up. And we actually figured that out with one of our businesses that was kind of backburnered. So our photo
Yeah.
booth business has always been referral, word of mouth. We never invested a penny into marketing. With one exception, we would do vendor shows.
Yes.
Aside from that, we didn't invest any money into
And
marketing.
those are expensive.
We jumped in. We considered ourselves one of, three, maybe five that were operating at our level
Mhm.
within our area.
Yeah.
reality is there's over 200 of them, and they're still getting business instead of us because they're showing up on Google instead of us. So we started putting over the last 6 weeks, putting some effort into our SEO for our photo booth company, and we're currently ranking number 7 in local cities and top 10 across 20 local cities.
Crazy.
So we're working our way up to becoming the obvious choice, but I'm already receiving phone calls. We're getting leads through our website. And the whole point is, if you put that SEO work into your
Mhm.
website, it can be a crappy website. But if it's showing up online and
True.
it's the right answer or solution for what people are asking,
Yeah.
you're gonna sell,
Right.
right? It's good to have a beautiful website also, but you got to get found.
You have to be found. Yeah, absolutely.
So our placement's up. We're already seeing the results within less than 2 months. So we've applied that to all of our business
Yeah,
websites.
and with Ever Studios as well.
Yep. And we're getting leads there. We're posting on social media. I created an automation process that will help us post automatically. So it's about a 5 minute run that normally humanly would take us 2 to 3 hours. So we reduce that workload from 2 to 3 hours down to 5 minutes.
You're so brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, streamline, right? You say
Yeah,
it all the time, work smarter, not harder.
absolutely.
I'd rather spend the extra hour figuring out the automation to where we can get that time back
Yeah.
and invest that time early on so that later on we don't have to deal with it.
Yeah. So when we move to Colombia, that we actually have the time that we want to explore.
Right.
And I mean, this is where you were born.
And also,
It's where you're
if I
from.
get all that time back, now I can take on that 11th client rather than being stuck at
Yeah,
10, or take on that 50th client instead of being stuck at 45.
sure.
Right. So that also increases our revenue as well as our
Yeah.
time, all the assets.
So that's a little bit of catch up. We haven't done this in a minute, just to let people know where we're at. We still have not received Chad Sedula. We're still waiting.
I actually haven't scanned the barcode since the end of December. So I'm gonna scan that and check and see if
Yeah, let me
there's a
know
status
because
update
then
there.
we have to make a trip to Chicago.
Yep.
Chicago. All
Cool.
right,
All right. Well, on
let's
with the.
dive in.
But we're gonna be talking about locals, labor, the various things that you can hire people for,
Yeah.
what it looks like as far as like here in the States, we have 1099 contractors, we have employees, and there's differences. And working with massage therapists, when I coach them, that's one of the things that we really have to dive deep into because it's not taught. That business side is
It's
not
not.
taught in massage school,
Yeah.
nor should it be, but that makes them dependent on learning from somebody else.
Mhm.
So we have to go over what are the expectations that you want out of this person, and then make sure they fit either under the employee or the contractor lineup.
Yeah. And this is by no means advice. It's just kind of an overview of the research that I did. So just want to preface this by saying do your own research as well and talk to people, or when you do your research, make sure that the websites that you're looking at are good websites, that
Right.
it's not just somebody putting a blog out there or whatever.
Right. Yes. No, for sure. That's actually really good advice for the don't take this as advice.
Don't. Yeah.
But realistically, we're gonna kind of base this off of the thing, what we want to do.
Mhm.
So with our research, these things that we're going to talk about, it's going to help us understand what fits best for
Right.
us. But also there's always that fear of doing things wrong and then the repercussions. And when a government is the repercussion, you want to make sure you're doing it right. Right. I mean, do right no matter what. But if it was, you lose $10 because you invested improperly. Okay, that is what it is. You learn from it.
Right.
But when the government's saying you didn't, pay this person properly, or you owe taxes to this person, or they're suing you because you were supposed to have been paying for this, but you
Right.
weren't, that's a big deal.
And Colombian citizens, the residents there, they are very protected by Colombian law when it comes to being an employee.
Yeah.
So
Which is good. I mean,
yeah,
it's what we don't want to see is countries that don't have that infrastructure of protection. That's the government's job, is to protect them,
absolutely.
to serve the common good. So let's talk a little bit about minimum wages and a little bit about labor laws.
Yeah. So it changed January 1st of 2024. The minimum wage in Colombia changed. It is now about 1,300,000 Colombian pesos, which equates to about $333 a month. That is the current minimum wage in Colombia, which is also, I want to say it's like $3 and something, $3 and something an hour. But and in Medellin, they're actually getting paid about $5.30 an hour, just because that's tourism is up there, and so they're going to make a little more money. Um, so
And to put that into perspective, what's our minimum wage here in the U.S.? We're at what, 10 something, 12 something?
are we? I
I
have
don't
no
know. Let me check.
idea.
So
Check that.
so as I'm talking through this, if we consider what the minimum wage in the U.S. is,
Oh, it's vastly different.
um, it's currently at 7.25.
It's 8. Should be over 8, I thought.
Federal minimum wage is 7.25. So states
Wow.
can still up that as well. And then there's a difference as a server, right? Because
You're making tips.
but when we think about, and we've talked about this in the past, but for those who haven't jumped into this
Yeah.
completely, when we look at our cost of living, if we were to be 100% full time in Colombia versus our cost of living in the United States, it's less than a quarter, closer to a fifth, where the minimum wage being half is actually a good sign.
Mhm.
Because if the minimum wage is, the minimum what you're making is around 5.20, the minimum wage was, would you say 3.30, 3.35, something
Something
like
like
that?
that, yeah.
So we're about half, we'll say, than the US. And yet the cost to live there being a fifth, Colombia actually is a more affordable
Yeah.
place then,
Mhm.
right?
Definitely.
And actually by almost a substantial amount, because for the wages to be half, but the cost to be a quarter, you're netting positive on
Mhm.
your dollar per hour, if you will, after your expenses.
Right.
So US is still more expensive.
It is. Plus, we pay health care on top of here in the States.
Right.
They do pay it there. They have universal health care. So if you fall below a certain amount, for income, you don't have to pay, kind of like Medicaid here.
Mhm.
However, everybody has to pay into it unless you do fall below that line. And so, but it's minimal. It's not a lot of money that you have to put into
Plus you have
that.
the supplemental option so that you essentially get priority, right? Having
If
private
you
insurance.
get private, if you want private insurance, you as a Colombian citizen, you automatically get EPS, which we talked about that in a
Yep.
previous podcast. So you have it. You just have to register for it,
Mhm.
and you would need to pay a certain percentage if you made Colombian
Right,
wages.
which is something we are going to investigate further about. Do we stay 100% US based clients? Do we do a blend? And that's all going to be part of the
Yeah.
conversation. We're going to mock up scenarios and figure out what makes the most sense
Mhm.
for us, not just to hold as much money, but make sure we're contributing to where we live. Right,
Absolutely.
we have to be giving back to our communities
Yeah.
one way or another. And sometimes that's directly to the government to support programs
Hmm.
that support the country. And sometimes that's donating directly to charities. And sometimes that's employing people
Right.
in Colombia.
Paying our taxes. If we fall underneath that, the majority of people in Colombia do not pay taxes. You've got a very corrupt government. Who knows where a lot of that money is going? They need road repairs and different things like that. I can tell you that I want to say back in 2017, a brand new tunnel was built from the airport going into Medellin. And what that did was it took a 45-minute ride and it cut it down to 20
Wow,
minutes.
that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. So we're going to go through that and when we travel there. And the other thing we wanted to talk about outside of wages is like the working hours and overtime. What is that like there? Public holidays and paid leaves. So we're going to kind of go over a lot of that. It is a 47-hour work week there. So the average employee, well, every employee has an 8-hour work day, and they are allowed up to 2 hours overtime of overtime pay, no more than that.
Right.
So no more than a 10-hour day. I mean, what do we work here?
Well, so here's the interesting thing. So the average blue collar workers, what we're going to put
Mhm.
just for fair comparison, in the U.S. is 41 hours per week, and there's a reason for that. With the U.S. being unionized, there's restrictions of what you're allowed to do as a regular workday, and then
Right.
there's overtime and qualifications and things like that. So when you compare standard to standard, um, technically, the average blue collar worker in the US works less time, but that's not accounting for the overtime. So
There's
40
no cap on overtime, is there?
that depends on the company,
Exactly.
but as at a government side, correct, there's not going to be a
Yeah.
cap as long as you're reporting all of your earnings,
Mhm.
right? So 41 hours is going to be the average work, and that's 80% that are paid hourly, and then you're going to have 15% that are salaried, and then a handful that just don't say. There's always the
What they may.
outliers. Yeah. So technically, if you just look at it on paper, the
Yeah.
US is less. However, when people are given the option for overtime, a lot of people just jump on it. You can be talking about your EMS workers, your nurses, your just about everybody, right?
Right.
Given that opportunity to me, I have a couple of friends who are given the opportunity in their field to work overtime, and one of them, he will work 7 days a week because he just wants to bank it, and so that when he wants to go out and spend and do the things,
Right.
go to Vegas or whatever he chooses to do,
That's Logan. He works 7 days a week.
right? And he collects overtime too. If they say, hey, we need you on Saturday, and he can get some
Yeah,
overtime on there, he's on it.
he does it for
Right,
sure.
grinders. So I don't think that's accurate at the 41. I think it's probably significantly more,
Yeah.
probably into the 50s, if not the 60s.
But I like
Which
how the Colombian government says no more
right,
than, so people are expected to have that work-life balance, it seems like,
yeah,
which is better for our health all the way around. So the other one is public holidays and paid leaves. Babe, 18 paid holidays there.
18 public holidays, are all of them paid,
Hmm.
regardless of, because I can tell you,
All.
being in the retail side in the U.S., there were times where you were expected to work on the holiday, and
Oh, Christmas
we
Day,
know a few of those
potentially,
holidays,
but
right?
New Year's for sure you guys
And so
worked.
you were paid, but you had to be there.
Yeah.
Where paid and not having to show up because it fell on a day is a whole different animal.
Yeah. No, they
So
shut it down.
yeah, and as they should. I think that's the case. If as long as the population knows that's what's happening, then you can plan for it, right? It sucks to go to a restaurant and find out they're closed, but at the same time, you're kind of like, good for them. Good for
Yeah.
them for not working on Christmas Day.
I just saw a video
You're being
earlier this
forced to work on it.
right
Yeah,
earlier this week that said that they are realizing local Colombians are realizing that if they open their stores, now because there's so much, there's expats and local tourism going on there that they'll make money
right.
if they want to open, and that's kind of sad because culturally you want to. I don't know. I feel like we've played a part in going down there and saying, hey, you can make more money. But when you recognize that, 40% of the population in Colombia is still very low income or poor, it's a way for them to make more money.
Right.
It's a better lifestyle for them.
And
So I get it
frankly, a lot of them could probably use the extra hours to
for sure.
just like here. I mean, we don't really talk too much about our past. We're pretty private people, but we've both been in situations where there wasn't money coming in,
Hmm.
there wasn't a roof, we had to figure it out. We've been there,
We've been
both of
there.
there on our own journeys. So we get struggle, we get prioritizing, we get having to do it in order to get paid so that we can
Hmm.
put gas in the tank or put food on the table.
For sure.
Right? We've been there. I get that. It's not just talking from an outsider point of view. We've lived that.
We've lived it.
So
Yeah.
18 public holidays. You've got some other items listed here for
5, compassionate leave. What do you think compassionate leave means? This is what it's labeled as in Colombia.
compassionate leave. No idea.
So if a loved one passed away,
Okay, so like a bereavement
a
period.
bereavement
Yeah.
period. So their wording around that is compassionate. And sick leave. What's sick leave to you?
So in the U.S., sick leave is I have a cold, I came down with something, and it's knocked me out for 3 or 4 days. I voluntarily have a bank of sick leave or sick days that I can use, so I can still get paid even if I'm not there.
If an employer offers that, a lot
Right.
of them don't. So sick leave in Colombia is more around our short-term or long-term disability. So they get 180 days of sick leave. It has to be documented by an authority figure to be able to receive this, which would be by your doctor probably. And there's probably another slew of things that have to be documented there. There's a lot of red tape in Colombia that you have to go through, and it also takes quite a bit of time usually, as we have found out. But that's the difference. So sick leave there, I didn't see anything around short-term or long-term disability that they have that available, but I also only got into a smidgen of all the stuff that they have. There was no way we could have covered everything that they have, nor did I want to because I'm not a specialist in this.
Right.
Yeah. So,
So
um,
up to 6 months of they're classifying as sick leave, but it could be,
it's more like a short term
right.
disability,
Yeah.
is what we have here. Yeah.
Did you happen to see if it was full pay or if it was a partial pay? Because sometimes you can get like 80% of your salary or 50% of
Right.
your salary. It's not always 100%.
Right. Let's just say that if this illness or something happened while you were working, the employer is responsible for paying 100% of those wages. If it's not, then I think they go through two different layers. And if I remember correctly, the last layer was being that they got 50% of their pay towards the end. Look into that, find somebody that understands
Right.
Colombian law, all of that kind of stuff, payroll, the taxes, the benefits, so that you're doing that the right way. But I don't remember specifically, but it was like a two layered thing if it was outside of something that happened at work.
One of the things that I'm working on in general as we learn more is to stop comparing to the US because they're
Yeah.
just different. It's
Yeah.
just two totally different worlds, different circumstances. So, therefore, it has to have a different approach.
Mhm.
And so, if we were to compare that, that would be like your unemployment insurance that everybody pays into
Yes.
if you're
Workman's
laid
comp.
off, and then workers' comp if you're injured on the job.
Yeah.
But there are going to be different programs with different names and different purposes.
Correct.
Just like we have sick leave, that's not what we call it, but there is a
Yeah.
place that would be
Which is
used.
another reason to make sure that you are getting the appropriate help, the specialist, somebody there down there that specializes in this, because our meaning making around certain words is very
Right.
different from
Yes.
from theirs. So, excuse me. So next we're going to talk about payroll taxes and employee benefits. I'm going to define these, and this is Colombian terminology,
Okay.
right? And it's very similar to ours. An employee is someone who may be expected to work from a specific location, is required to work specific business hours, and is directed or managed by you, someone in your company.
Okay. That's
It's
pretty
like a direct,
straightforward.
yeah, it is.
It's here's one thing that I like already. I like that it's short, sweet, to the point.
Hmm.
In America, we're a very litigious
Oh,
country. And so to
long.
define this would probably have 17 pages just to
Right.
say you work for somebody.
Yes. So if we wanted a personal assistant, they would be required to work specific hours, specific days, report to us. So that would be an employee.
Potentially.
Potent.
And I have a scenario where that might not be the case.
Okay.
Do you want me
So,
to tell you now or before you get,
well, I'm going to read the employee obligations
I'm
around
going to write down
this.
because I don't ever remember stuff.
So, if you hire an employee, your company will be required to pay all standard Social Security and tax obligations, including severance assistance. We don't have that here in the States. Interest on severance assistance, bonuses. Did you know that you're required to pay your employees in Colombia a Christmas bonus every year?
That's good.
Required, absolutely. So,
My opinion, though, on bonuses is they need to be earned.
well, that's the mentality here
Yeah.
in the States.
I don't feel,
Very different.
but I'm not a give something for nothing. So even if it's maintained, so I've been in sales a long time, and there's always a expectation of 100%, but there's a reality. A
Right.
great salesperson might hit 90% of their goal, right? And so you're constantly coaching to get them to be better. But even with that, you know that it's not going to be 100%. So if somebody were to get to that, you know
Yeah.
what your fair expectation is. Even though they're doing the job, they're fulfilling what they're supposed to, that's still above and beyond the general
Mm.
expectation or the general average.
Right.
So to me, that's definitely a bonus. I also believe that you can put bonus structures in that people can work towards as motivation. A Christmas bonus for everybody, I think, because they're so religious that's a nice thing
Correct.
to support the community, the
Yes.
beliefs. Um, it's
Well, it's a
always
big deal. Christmas is a big
it's
deal.
always tough to think mandatory or obligate it, but again, that's our terminology.
And it's our
Feels
culture
yeah.
here in the States. So there it is mandatory that you pay. And then for a contractor is someone who may provide services to you or your company on a per project basis, has no set hours, is not required to provide services from a specific location, may provide services utilizing their own equipment, tools, etc., is not being directed, managed by you or someone in your company in connection with the provision of their services.
So, an insurance agent, because it specifically says it's not required to provide services from a certain location. If you have an office, you cannot require them to come into the office if you're going to hire them as a contractor.
Right.
As opposed to an employee where you say, this is your desk, you're expected to be here 8 hours a day, that would be employee.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that definition because in the US, your differences between employee and contractor, it's not gray, but it can be confusing which one you should classify as. Like massage therapist, I'll go back to that reference. If I own a space and I hire you as a 1099 contractor, I can say you have to perform the duties in this space,
Right.
but I can't tell you what to wear. I can't tell you when to show up.
Hmm.
In between your times, I can't make you do other stuff like clean the bathrooms, maintain the office, restock. Those are
Exactly.
things I can't do. You are your own business, your own entity operating within the confines of what we have.
And that's important to know. If it's a contractor, we're hiring their company, their business, them if they're just solo, but
Right.
it's their company to do a job for us.
Right.
And if we keep that in mind, because I've seen a lot of employers treat contractors like they're an employer, telling
All
them
the
what they
time.
have to wear
Way
and
too
things.
often.
Excuse me.
Absolutely. Yep. And
So
and they get away with it. And it's huge in the massage industry because there's just so little regulation when it comes to that field. Because it's this weird in
right.
between of medical and non-medical. It's this really strange in betweener in the United States.
Yeah,
So
and so a contractor's obligations is the same as here. They're obligated to pay their own Social Security and tax obligations, while you and your company are only obligated to pay their service fee less any applicable withholdings.
so I told you I was going to come back to the
Yeah.
scenario where I say operates like an so if you were to hire, we'll call it a housekeeper or a translator or a personal assistant. We use those three because those are probably going to be the most common that
Hmm. Hmm.
come across. If you hire somebody from a service, so not directly, you are actually hiring the company
Hmm.
to provide the service. That company is the one that's responsible for that individual's
Correct.
items, not us. So if we hire, Jenna directly, and we expect Jenna to work with alongside us and travel with us and translate and help us with
That's a
whatever.
direct employee.
That's a direct employee of us.
Yes.
But if Jenna is hired by ABC Company and we hire ABC Company to provide Jenna to us,
Contract.
well, yeah, exactly. But not even a contract. That's just purchasing a service
Hmm.
from that company and they pay Jenna either contract or employee.
Yes.
Right. So we don't have at that point the obligations for that are required of an email.
Say we were
employee.
going to remodel an apartment there.
Yep.
And we would hire a contractor. That's where that name comes from, right? And so we were going to hire somebody to
Put in the floor.
put in our floor, hand make our furniture, which they do a lot of that there. Things that those are specific project based,
Right.
contract employed. Yeah. So
we understand employee contractor, but you can,
yeah.
and it's not to get away with. It's if you're going to hire somebody for work, but you need them, maybe you need them for your first 4 months that you're going to be there,
Hmm.
but not forever.
Right.
It may not be right to establish an employee relationship if you're going to be moving back to the U.S. for the remaining 8 months.
Yeah.
Right. So it may be worth the additional 10-15% to hire through a service or a
Hmm.
company that provides the staff, to where you don't have the obligations, because if you hire somebody full time,
Right.
I'm sure there's some requirements about laying people off and rehiring them and laying them off and rehiring them on a part-time basis or like a part-time per year basis.
They do. They have. Yes, there's a whole section on that.
And it doesn't mean you can't find, a Jenna who's like, oh, you're gonna be here for 4 months. Cool. I got you. Right. But just know that that's part of it, that you have investments into their life and livelihood
Yeah.
that you're obligated
And
to.
we could live here in the States and still have quote unquote our personal assistant working for us while we're here in the States,
Depending upon our needs and what
depending
makes
upon our
sense. Yeah.
absolutely. And it
Yep.
might be smart for us to do that. That is something we're considering.
All right.
So,
Payroll practices.
so they get paid monthly, first of all.
Interesting. That's a little different.
It is a little different. And employees pay up to 10% of their wages in Social Security contributions. So that was something else that I learned.
Is that more or less than us? I'm going to look that up.
You do that, and I'm going to talk about the insurance, the EPS, health insurance contributions. It is universal health care, but it is also calculated based on an individual income, typically about 12.5% of an individual's income. Again, depending on what they make.
So listed here from the .gov for the U.S. is a 6.2%. Employers and employees each pay 6.2% of wages up to the taxable minimum, um, while the self-employed pays 12.4%,
Oh, wow.
where
Okay.
where you pay the employee and
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
employer side. So 12.4 is the total contribution.
For contractor, if you're 1099.
Yeah, I mean 12.4 is the total, and
Yeah.
then it's split in half if you're an employee and your employer contributes, or if you're self-employed, then you just assume
Got
all
it.
of it. We're there. I think the only thing that we didn't look up was um, what the contributions are employee versus employer. So is it 10% plus 10%, so 20, or is it just 10% and it's all on the employee?
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to do their own research around that, because again, it's different. It's could be it's 10%, but
It's
it
also up to 10%. It's
up
not
to
like,
10% is
right.
exactly. So it's whatever you're currently making, similar to here, I guess. And then the health insurance again, it is 12.5% of an individual income that you put towards that. But again, that's also calculated based on individual income. Now, the health or the employee benefits, detailed like their paid leave policies, they include annual leave, maternity, 18 weeks. We only get 12 here. They also get paternity leave. We do too, through the Family and Medical Leave Act. The U.S. gives eligible workers up to 12 weeks of unpaid time on or after the birth or placement of a child. So that also includes adoption, and it also applies to fathers. And most recently, it's also same-sex marriage as well. So sick leave, again, 180 days, but that has to be, you have to get that in writing from an authority
You get your
around
voting
that.
day. You get your voting day, half a day for
You get a
voting.
half a day for voting, 5 days of compassionate leave, and
You
then
know, that
again,
voting day, I think that's so important. Like, you can't, in the US, you constantly hear on the news, record turnout, but it's like 12%. Like, nobody showed up, right? Why? Because there's so much requirement of having to go to work. But if you're given a half day,
right.
I think more people would
I think if they had the
exercise
time,
their right.
I agree, absolutely. So you get a half a day off
But
there
if
to
you're
vote.
clocking it and you're paid per hour, that's money out of your pocket.
Say you're a mom, you have kids, you got to get them ready for school, get them off to school. You don't and get to work by 8 o'clock.
Right.
How do you have time to run in and vote? Right. So 18 paid days for holidays. That's a lot. That is a lot. I think they are one of the top countries in the world for holidays. So, why would we hire a local Colombian, Chad? Why do we want to do this? What's
It's,
our reason why?
well, there's several things. I can tell you some big ones for me is bridging the gap between the culture there and what we believe. And
Yeah,
as we ingrain ourselves, because it's not just a light switch. And so there's going to be some things that we're going to learn directly from them. There's going to be things that we need from
right.
them,
Mm-hmm.
to make our lives easier. But also, in general, having it, we've never been the type of people who have an assistant, right? We don't have an
No,
assistant now. We haven't had one in the past. And when I've worked for a company, I've had, a marketing assistant that I would delegate work to. But we've never been the people that in our personal lives, we needed somebody to run our lives. But we may need somebody who helps us find or research or acquire. And having somebody who's native is going to be super helpful for us.
There's the language barrier. That would be really awesome to have somebody. And this personal assistant can do anything for you, like help you look for,
Fill out
uh,
documents.
oh my God, translation, like all kinds of things. So that personal assistant to me is way worth whatever. And they're usually, but you can find a personal assistant there between $8 and $10 an hour. Sadie is on something
I was
right
just going
now.
to move the camera to show who's
Um,
trying
you
to be
need
part
to
of this.
lay down. Lay down.
She's on something after
It's
that
not
door.
time yet.
All right, let's
She wants to EAT. I can't even say that
she
word out
always
loud.
wants to.
So, but it's a contribution to the Colombian economy, um, especially when you know how many Colombians are living below the minimum wage. So, this is an opportunity for us. You can also go to the local university there and you can, have an intern, if you will, but pay them, right? You want to pay them, but you can have a student come and work for you as well so that they could be having, have a part time job while they're going to school. Um, and so we talked about a personal assistant for us. What else do you think we could? I can see two more positions that we would want to fill while
In
we're
addition
there.
to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, there's. I know one that you're thinking about is having a housekeeper,
Once a week.
and that's one that we don't have that now. But if we alleviated such a substantial amount of like deep cleaning and whatnot from our workload, we would be able to be more effective and do the things that we want to do. And that's the whole goal, is to be able to live the lives we want to live.
Yeah. But it's also contributing to their financial wealth, right?
Yeah.
We're paying them to do a service,
Right.
getting to know a local Colombian. They can learn things from us. We can learn things from them. But a housekeeper, they call them maids there, but a housekeeper can also cook for you. So they do more. They can do your laundry. They can do all kinds of things. Do you know how many hours a week do I spend cleaning up and doing laundry and cleaning up after Sadie and
Right.
the different things? So, but it's also, and they want that. They want to be able to work. So the average housekeeper in 2024 makes about $2.32 an hour.
So from the 2023 numbers in 2024, that's what they're making.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2024. Nope, this is January, as of January 1st. But you can get a personal driver.
Yep.
Personal assistant, housekeepers. So these are some various roles that expats might consider, that if you're really wanting that lifestyle, and it's not a rich or wealthy lifestyle, but it's really what can help match or contribute to your life and making things easier for you. We want to work smarter as we get older, right? Not
Right.
necessarily harder. So when we talked about, and also for the fact that we have limited Spanish, so finding somebody that can help you along that way, which your personal assistant is going to be your go-to for that.
Big one. That's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
big one for us, at the very least, for our first run there.
I agree. Yeah. So understand Colombian employment laws. I cannot stress this enough, because you can get sued in a heartbeat by a Colombian employee if you did not do things the right way.
Right.
And then knowing the difference between a contractor and employee. And Chad, you and I are really leaning towards just hiring a service to do this stuff for us. Like if you wanted to call Mary Maids to come, because when we started dating, you had a cleaning service coming in here once every other week.
Right.
Did your laundry, all of it. And then I showed up. Sorry.
I offered to keep them. You said no. You're second guessing that
Well,
decision now.
well, with the Sadie hair, I still have to clean just about every day. Anyway, but know the termination procedures if you needed to let an individual go. Understand the minimum wage, their employee benefits, which is huge. Again, Colombian residents are very protected around all of this. And then cultural sensitivities, respect Colombian work culture, union rights, labor practices. I want to highlight that.
One of the things that we already do in our businesses is we put a lot of trust. We vet our people, and then we put a lot of trust in them. We hire them because we
Right.
trust them. We trust them to accomplish what needs to get done. Therefore, we don't have to do a lot of micromanaging. If somebody says, I'm not going to be available for 3 days, no problem. There's still an expectation that you meet the deadlines,
Sure.
but we've already established that early on. So most of the time, our people don't come to us with problems. They come to us with solutions and
Mhm.
saying, I'm going to be off Thursday through Saturday, but I've already completed what I needed to do. Can you review it today?
Great.
Right. So we come from an approach that is already doing that
Mhm.
because in Colombia, if somebody says, I need this or that, we will do the same thing and have expectations of you do what you got to do as long as you get it done.
As
And if
long as
that
it
means you
gets
got to
done.
plan ahead,
Absolutely.
take care of what you got to take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are gonna hire a private driver to pick us up at the airport. It is not a much it's not a lot more than hiring a
I'm calling it
cab.
the same. I'm calling it the same
It's
because
pretty
it's
much the
so
same.
close. It's like the difference is $28 and $30. It's so
It's so
close. It's
close.
worth it.
And but this is through a service, and we can do it
Right.
all on the app on our phone. Done and done. So when we get there, and we're going to do that, to get back to the airport for our first time, right? But you would also want to consider she is really
Yeah, that's right.
something going on here. So yeah, so that's kind of what we have for today. And next week we're going to talk about the average Colombian work week and maybe some cultural differences and things that we need to explore and be mindful of because we are going to their country.
Right.
So until next time, keep expanding your horizons and living beyond the desk. Have an extraordinary day.